Hey, Chucky.
Come on, man. Can't you at least pretend to be afraid?
You know you're not scary, right?
Yeah, but give me a break. Today was stressful.
Did the kids find out you were lying about them being special again?
No. Well, yes, but that's not why. There was this girl. She gave me a drawing.
So what? Kids give you drawings all the time.
It was so compromising. This tiny little girl, she drew me without a shirt on.
That's it?
It was mortifying.
You've got to be kidding me. I've seen worse drawings of you.
What? Where?
You asked for this.
Oh my God! I think I'm gonna be sick!
There are no exceptions to Rule 34. Chuck E. Cheese, the company that, against all odds, is still in business. With over 600 locations worldwide, the chain is the go-to place for children who are too young to understand that Five Nights at Freddy's isn't real. That said, I can't entirely blame them with how nightmarish some of the older animatronics are. Even so, there's a lot more to Chuck E. Cheese than people realize. Since the franchise is over 40 years old, there's tons of history to explore. There's so much, I can't even begin to cover it all. Instead, I chose some of the most interesting bits. So, let's dig in. We'll begin with a quick history lesson. Chuck E. Cheese was founded in 1977 at San Jose, California. The restaurant was conceived by none other than Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari. Bushnell envisioned a family arcade that could showcase video games to kids. He proposed a coyote as the mascot and purchased a costume for his engineers to review. However, upon delivery, the team informed him that he had actually purchased a rat. Quick on his feet, Bushnell created a familiar name, Chuck E. Cheese. Chucky started off as a dramatically different character. Self-absorbed and raunchy, he was more like a drunk uncle than a mascot. He hurled insults at his co-workers, openly smoked cigars, and worst of all, hailed from New Jersey. Chuck debuted with a colorful cast of characters alongside him. They include an Italian stereotype, Mamma mia, a Southern stereotype, and girl. The initial location also featured Krusty the Cat. Krusty was good buddies with Chuck and wore a t-shirt that just said swingers on it, and if that doesn't sum up the 70s, then I don't know what will. He was canned pretty quickly and replaced with Cookie Monster's rejected cousin, Mr. Munch. To help fill out the crew, a slew of background characters were made as well. There was a fox, a deer, racism, and more. The reason there were so many different characters is because Chuck E. Cheese expanded. Fast. Not just domestically either. The franchise's first international location opened in 1986 and was in Guatemala. Not too long after, the business even got across the Pacific into Australia. They had to rebrand to Charlie Cheeses though, as Chuck is common slang for barf. Fitting. Now that's enough of the boring stuff. I realize why most people are here. Everyone knows that Chuck E. Cheese has animatronics in it. Bushnell saw that people enjoyed live entertainment while eating. However, he didn't want to pay people to do live performances, and after visiting the Tiki Room in Disneyland, he knew animatronics were the solution. There were plenty of robots and stages used during this era, but I'm going to show you how it started. The shelf. The shelf consisted of several rectangular cutouts that housed different characters. There were 2 generations of animatronics used here. The first generation was really weird because the characters were almost entirely two-dimensional with some limited locomotion in the arms and face. It's easy to see why the stage was nicknamed the Portrait Show. The second set were more advanced full upper body animatronics that allowed for 3D movement. The characters were then placed above the main eating area for guests to see along with several flags. You know what? These guys are starting to make a lot more sense now. Remember how I said Chuck E. Cheese was expanding fast? Well, they started to grow a bit too fast. As the company gained more and more locations, expenses started to pile up and debt grew. By the mid-80s, the chain was in danger of bankruptcy. Showbiz Pizza, CEC's main rival, saw the opportunity and bought them out. Due to copyright issues, though, Showbiz ended up rebranding itself to Chuck E. Cheese. I am eternally grateful for that because this is what Showbiz looked like. Although the Chuck E. Cheese brand was retained, the new owners made plenty of updates. Chuck became a lot more family-friendly and ditched the cigars. As the name implies, he also began to wear a tuxedo and bow tie. Tch, what a lame outfit. Who would wear that? Anyways, the animatronics began to improve as well. They're still monstrous, of course, but they won't give kids nightmares anymore. Probably. During this era, Munch's make-believe band was formed to incorporate more music. I'm actually pretty familiar with this setup as my local Chuck E. Cheese used a stage from this era, the 2-stage. Its arrangement is rather odd because the supporting characters are all grouped together while Chucky is just awkwardly placed off to the side. I guess Helen was tired of Chuck talking about her 2-piece McNuggets. On a serious note, the characters speak with each other, play their instruments, and generally give off a good vibe for guests to enjoy. While animatronics continued to dazzle customers within the restaurants, the company explored new avenues to get more people in the door. Due to these efforts, Chuck E. Cheese made some unusual partnerships. There was somehow not one, but 2 different Barbies sporting sponsored apparel, with the latter doll being hilariously gaudy. Move over, Ken. Barbie's found a new gym rat. They also made about 7 billion different Hot Wheels, and there was even an Easy Bake Oven. Finally, restaurant quality food from the comfort of my own home. Yes, you read that right. Avenger Chuck may not be out here fighting baddies with Tony Stark, but he is armed with a radical personality and a skateboard. Donned with his now iconic purple and green attire, there's something about the new look I had never noticed before. Chucky lost his tail. I'm almost ashamed to admit I never noticed this as a kid. Maybe he was like a lizard and broke off while he was escaping the predatory clutches of Disney. Hostile takeover possibilities aside, Chucky wasn't the only one to change. All his friends received a facelift to help homologate the new style. The redesign brought a dramatic shift in animatronic implementation. Rather than featuring a full band like before, a single Chucky robot was presented in a late-night newsroom format. Apparently, this was an early attempt to phase out the auxiliary characters. I'm not entirely sure why the higher-ups wanted to remove the rest of the band, but eventually this idea was overturned and the characters were re-added through the stage's screens. Although the supporting cast were absent physically, the Chucky animatronic was heavily improved to compensate. Visually and mechanically, this is one of the premier animatronics for its time. Its movement is so fluid and expressive that previous iterations look straight up incompetent by comparison. I gotta give him a hand, seriously. All these improvements helped lead the company to some of its most profitable years in history, giving them plenty of spending cash. Believe me when I say they spent this money wisely. In 1999, they created a direct-to-video movie that's just over an hour long. Titled Chuck E. Cheese and the Galaxy 5000, the movie quickly throws the exposition at us and gets on with it. A boy comes to Chucky saying he needs $50,000 to fix his parents' tractor. Instead of Chucky and his friends helping the poor kid out by donating some of their millions of dollars in profits, they decide to abduct the child, teleport to a different planet, get attacked by 2 jacked Austrian dudes, and enter into a non-copywritten Star Wars pod race. The strangest thing about this entire movie is that it's actually decent. The writing is surprisingly self-aware and has a few good laughs in it. It's not some miraculous hidden gem, but it's much better than you'd expect for a Chuck E. Cheese movie. Not satisfied with just a motion picture, the franchise paired up with, paired up with the owners of Bubsy to create video games in the early 2010s. Together, they made a lot, actually. The titles include Arcade Room, Game Room, Party Games, Sports Games, Playhouse, and Alien Defense Force. What the hell? That's a mistake. That can't be real. Oh my god, it's real. Although it may sound like there's a lot of games to choose from, they're pretty much all the same. Collections of mini-games with bare-bones gameplay, but with Chuck E. Cheese branding slapped all over it. Even Alien Defense Force is. Why even call it that? From my understanding, Sports Games is likely the best of the bunch and is actually pretty fun, with the only caveat being it looks like a PlayStation 2 game. Oh, and it's exceedingly rare, with new copies costing almost $100. By the early 2010s, things were getting stale and it was time to start over. Again. This time, however, was different. Chucky has been transformed from a humble cartoon mouse to a fully three-dimensional rock star. To add more depth to his character, a new origin story was created, and boy is it weird. As with all good origin stories, Chucky's parents are dead. Probably. An orphan for as long as he can remember, Chucky never learned his birthday. He loves parties and singing happy birthday to his fellow orphans, but he's never experienced it himself. Apparently, no one wanted to adopt a cute singing mouse, and Chucky aged out of the system and was left homeless. Who wrote this? John Steinbeck? Several days later, Chucky found refuge in a pizza parlor. He loved listening to the playing radio and the smell of pizza in the air. Eventually, the owner, which is Pasquale by the way, found Chucky and tried to kill him. Thankfully, Chucky was saved by using his beautiful singing voice, sparing him from a terrible demise. Remember, kids, if you're not talented, you will die. To finish Chucky's new identity, it was decided to hire a new voice actor. CEC wanted someone popular, someone kid-friendly, someone who can sing. After weeks of debate, hundreds of auditions, thousands of applications, they found their man. They chose the lead singer of Bowling for Soup, Jared Reddick. Yeah, that'll work. Like the mascots, the company's business model committed to a big shift. In May 2015, the first stage without animatronics debuted. I know what you're thinking, and no, this was not some response to Five Nights at Freddy's. The CEO stated that kids simply weren't interested in watching them anymore, so why bother making them? Instead, they opted for regular appearances of a costume Chucky. Most locations still use their old animatronics, however, expect them to slowly be removed as time goes on. Another change they made was an increase in external content, particularly through YouTube. In these videos, all the characters are represented through puppetry, and I think that's weirdly perfect. I'm serious, they're quite charming. The channel uploads all sorts of stuff, poggers, but I wanted to point out the music specifically. While Chucky and his band have been performing since the 90s, they've started to create a lot more original music. Some of their new hits include Be Yourself, Stay Positive, and Loppin' Spoopin' Fakin' Doopin' Floppin' Loopin' Funnin's Day. That's the 5th longest word in the English language, by the way. Unfortunately, Chuck E. Cheese was hit hard by COVID. With 600 locations suddenly empty, the company went for any revenue stream they could find. One idea stood out from the rest: Pasquale's Pizza and Wings. The proposal involved using Chuck E. Cheese kitchens to serve delivery under this new faux brand. Naturally, I had to try this. First impressions weren't great because the prices are really high. The food is delivered exclusively through third-party companies, so the rates are permanently jacked up. The food itself, though, was surprisingly good. It's not incredible, don't get me wrong, but it was enjoyable. Maybe I shouldn't have dunked on their food so much. Chuck E. Cheese is an interesting company that goes far deeper than I ever expected. While it's had plenty of stumbles over the years, it always seems to find its footing again. Personally, I can't wait to see what comes next for the company. Holy shit!